Hello, everybody.
Hi, Rachel.
Hey, Jess. Hey, Dale. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for this RevGenius webinar in partnership with Lexion. Today's webinar is all about closing deals faster by getting legal on your side. My name is Rachel Cottom. I'm the head of content over at Lexion. And if you haven't heard of us, we are an AI-driven contract management solution that is committed to helping every team close deals faster. That's the topic of this webinar. We've got a great lineup today with a combined 40 plus years of experience in sales and legal roles. And as I introduce you to our panelists, we would love it if you would jump into the chat. I know Adriana has already done an introduction. Many of you are already jumping in and telling us where you're calling from. We'd also love to hear what your roles are. We would really like to cater our discussion today to the specific bunch of folks that we've got with us. So whether you're in sales, whether you're in marketing, whether you're in legal ops or rev ops, let us know what your role is so we can help to answer those really specific questions about closing deals faster. Now, I'll tell you just a little bit about today's speakers, but I really want them to have the chance to introduce themselves. First, we've got Dale Zawinski, who is the founder of the Sales Change Agent, and many of you may know from the RevGenius Slack channel. And we've also got Jessica Nguyen, who is our Chief Legal Officer at Lexion. Rather than read through bios, I'm going to start with a controversial question. So, Dale, let's go to you first. What is the most annoying thing a legal person did when you were trying to get a deal through?
Oh, Dale, your audio is a bit weird.
You're sounding a little robot-y. You're good. We can go to Jess first. So we're actually going to flip it on the head. We're not trying to create enemies here, but let's hear, Jessica, from you. What is the most annoying thing a salesperson did when they were trying to get a deal through?
God, it's really hard to really limit it to just one thing. It's really a combination of many things. If I could narrow it down, though, it comes down to ownership and really owning the deal and managing the deal and managing it well, which is extraordinarily annoying. In my experience, the 40 is not just me. I am not that old. It is an aggregate. But
Yes, it is.
in my decade plus experience in both supporting sales organization in a legal capacity, but also owning the sales process, not just from when a deal is like handed to me, I actually have to source my own deals, is I have learned to be an owner and really act like an owner. And so many sales folks really treat like, hey, I did the demo, I did the follow up, and I got them to buy in. My role is done, and I get the commission, and you're just blocking my commission and me hitting my target. And I'm like, oh no, there's no signature on the deal yet. You're not done. You got to continue to own this, and owning it means not just punting it over to the email legal at alias and just review this contract. It's easy peasy. You're the last thing blocking me from closing. It is really, well, what are the issues? What are the open issues? What are all the open items that need to get done before, the deal will get signed? Is there a security review? Is there a contract review? Is all the discounting and business commercial terms agreed upon? I get so often zero context and when I get a contract. So, and often I'm about 95% sure the account executive and their manager has not even opened the file that was given to legal to see that it was a 50-page contract on third-party paper, heavily like one-sided terms, have terms that actually impact accounting, their commission, and their revenue. And not just the legal stuff. So I'll be like, I just quickly skimmed it. Are you okay with term for convenience? Are you okay that they wanted a most favored nation clause that says their pricing will be matched with the lowest pricing you've given to any other customer? Are you okay with all those things? They'd be like, I don't know. Well, you just delayed the deal, buddy. So those are things that are quite annoying. Dale, I mean, you've never done that, right, Dale? Oh no, I can't hear you. I think it's the virtual God saying that Jessica is right and Bella has no voice no matter.
They're crowning Jessica the queen of this rumble. Oh no. Yeah, I think those are really, really good points, Jessica. And I think that's something that a lot of folks here would relate to. Looks like we have got really representation from a ton of different roles. We've got RevOps, we've got AEs, we've got SDRs. So we really have folks across the revenue org. And I bet, Dale, you would probably have a good understanding of where those folks are coming from if we can magically cue up your mic here.
Let me
Oh,
see.
Yes. Now you're muted again. Thank you, folks, for bearing with us.
No, we're just gonna have to go old school. I'm gonna have to like come off my microphone, so I'm just have to yell here.
We can hear you.
So two things I want to say. One is on the deal management side. I think the bigger challenge that we end up having is actually turnaround times, and it actually does start with the salespeople because we always like think of legal last, and so like we get all the contracts ready, and then we like flip the legal, and we're like, okay, we need it by like tomorrow, and legal's like, oh, I'm going on vacation, right? You never do that, right, Jessica? Going on vacation at the end of the quarter. Um, so I think we can do a better job on the sales side to actually make sure that the turnaround time. I did a little poll this morning to try to find out like where the challenges are, and what I hear a lot from a lot of the salespeople is the turnaround times.
Mm.
But what they don't realize is it's probably on them because it's probably the deal management side of it. So I think we can all do a better job of not only getting the deals through, but also having an expectation of when we can get them turned around.
Yeah. Yeah, I think turnaround times is something really interesting that you've brought up here, Dale. And then Jessica, just understanding the deal management, being an owner of your deal, understanding what the review actually looks like. And like Dale said, that it's not just going to come back yesterday, right? That's just not how it works. And we're going to really dig into that today. So thank you for answering my slightly controversial intro question. I know we started out taking shots, but that really isn't the point of this webinar. Both Jessica and Dale here have worked on teams where the deals motion is slick as butter, and they've got great advice for each of you today for how you can achieve this too. So let's dig in a little bit more. Don't forget, folks, as you have questions, you can either put them into the Q&A, into the chat. If you're on LinkedIn, same thing. We've got somebody monitoring those questions as well, and we'll either answer them live or we'll save some time at the end for Q&A as well. So let's go back to this question about where deals are getting stuck. And I would love to hear from the audience here. So if you wouldn't mind jumping into the chat, let us know, where do you think deals are getting stuck most often? I'm going to go to Dale as we've got folks answering there. From your vantage point, Dale, where do you see deals getting stuck most often?
Yeah, I think it's salespeople not understanding terms. So we think when we get a contract that we do try to sell as much as we can, but you may have like a out for convenience, and
Mm,
we're trying to push these specific clauses. And so I think what ends up happening is we'll send it over to legal. Legal will redline a bunch of stuff, and then the biggest part is can we get the next iteration of the contract much smaller from a red line perspective. So I think that ends up happening a lot where we don't understand all the terms. We could probably be educated a little bit, but we don't need to go so deep. We just need to understand at a macro level, a high level, what are these terms that we should be at least aware of when we're starting to go through the deal process.
yeah, I think that's echoed by Richard here in the chat. He says a sticking point is a commercial issue or a contract term with legal risk. So it's kind of that understanding has to go both ways from the sales team and the legal team. Jessica, what would you add to that?
I think that is 100% spot on. Is there's so much wasted sales cycle time on the back and forth between sales and legal internally. I have no context on this deal. When is it forecasted to close? What is the dollar value of this deal? Have you already reviewed all of the commercial terms that are in the contract, that were embedded in the contract? It's not rocket science. It's literally stuff like the customer may terminate this agreement at any time for any reason. That's all it
Mm,
says. It's simple layman's terms. Did you see that? Are you okay with that? If we could eliminate or reduce that back and forth, that will very much accelerate the deal cycle. Now,
yeah.
the where I also think there is a misperception, Dale, in true fashion, ambiguously did a poll. I saw the poll, Dale. It was like turnaround time. Well, turnaround time by whom? Like, what about the turnaround time by like other business stakeholders? Did finance approve this level of discounting? Legal doesn't make that call, and we are beholden to their turnaround time. What about the counterparty? Did they sign off on the IT security review? Because their legal says we're not going to like review the contract until our IT team signs off on your security questionnaire. So I think bucketing turnaround time as all in legal's court is a very common sales misperception. And so part of the reason why I joined Lexion and we built the functionality that we did is to unblock and clarify that misperception. We're partners, we're partners in this deal. Hey, Dale, I want to bring you metrics that shows a big reason why that deals are slowing down is that our internal finance team is taking a long time to approve certain discounting or special payment terms, or the counterparty security team is blocking the deal now. For whatever reason, there's been a lot of heightened cybersecurity concerns, or the economy is slowing down and their CFO has told them to slow roll everything. That's happening. And so if I can give you that metrics, I'm not trying to be combative, but more like, how do I partner with you? These are actually give you visibility as to what is really slowing down turnaround time. Is it really legal, or is it really all those other players that we cannot control?
Well, what did they say? Usually everything rolls downhill, and legal is the last one. So I guess it always
Yeah.
falls on me.
Yeah, I think one thing that you brought up too, Dale, when we were discussing this earlier, is that a lot of times timing is really what gets deals stuck, right? It's the end of quarter. Everyone is trying to push for end of quarter. And then we feel that tension between sales and legal occurring. Anything either of you would add about what we can do when there's that hard end of quarter push?
Get it in sooner. And we'll talk a little bit about this, but I think one of the bigger challenges, and I think Stacy said it, like often the buyer doesn't even know what's happening in their buying process, right? So we have a sales process. The customer, the prospect, could care less about our sales process. They also have a buying process, and so I think the easier way to get over this hurdle is to create like a mutual action plan, a joint engagement plan earlier in the process, so you kind of understand, if I give you a contract, these are all the steps that's going to happen on the buying side of the equation. A little bit about what Jessica was just saying. She's like, there's a lot of stakeholders where this can get stuck in turnaround time. I find that customers, like the turnaround time on customers, is probably where it gets stuck the most. Our legal teams usually inside of our companies are very quick to turn things around. Now, they may have other priorities. Like your $100,000 deal is not as important as this $400 million deal, right? So it's all relative speaking. But I think if we do a better job throughout the buying process, we'll do a better job at getting them unstuck.
Yeah, Jessica, anything you would add there?
Yeah, I would say better training and visibility. So one of the things we talked about, Dale, in our prep call was invite your core legal team that supports commercial transactions to your pipeline review meetings. What does this do? It allows your legal team to provide not just visibility as to what's coming up in the pipeline for their team at the end of the end of quarter rush, but also make sure your account executives are on top of it with learning the buyer sales process. Not all buyers require you to work on their paper or require an IT security review. They might just be okay with you supplying your SOC report or your ISO report and using your paper, say for some commercial terms they commonly negotiate. I love those buyers, but not all buyers are like that. So if I'm in your pipeline review meeting at the beginning, middle of a quarter, and I see an account executive, let's say it's March, end of March is the end of the quarter, and it's March 15th, and an account executive is saying, I'm calling IBM to close this quarter. I'm sorry, IBM, no one in legal has gotten their contract. Have you even started a security review? They'd be like, no, but I feel really good about it. Optimism is a superpower, but also a weakness. Okay. I get it helps you mentally survive the sales process, but also you need to be realistic. All right. And if IBM is a pain in the rear, no offense to IBM attendees there, they're going to demand their paper. They're going to have a security review. Have you even talked to someone in procurement? They have a huge procurement team, and they're going to badger you on price. Or did you just no? So I would not forecast it for this month. So legal can be there to help educate the AE. So it's not just on sales management. Or we can say, like, we'll hustle, but please give us at least 2 weeks, from start of contracting to the end. So can you push your prospect? Let's partner. Can we push your prospect to get us all of that, keep that process, in place now, or X amount of weeks? In my experience, it takes 4 weeks to get this all done and wrap it up. Or I can even give you suggested talk tracks to encourage your prospect to use our paper, which will accelerate the transaction by 65 days. I pulled the metrics from Lexion. Whenever we do a deal on our paper, it reduces the sales cycle by 60 days. Do you like that? They'll be like, yes. Okay, well, let's encourage it. What can we say to our prospect to encourage them to use our paper? And let's brainstorm as a partner together.
We had some requests for you to do the voice again, and you just did it. You just did the sales voice.
I'm sorry. So many are sorry, sales bros. At the voice I did sales bro, didn't I?
I think you did. It was good.
You don't sound like a sales bro. You can sound like
I'm bringing Jessica into all my negotiations. Jessica's all my negotiations from now on. She's gonna get every contract on our paper.
I do have a tendency to make opposing counsel crack up. And then we come to negotiation. We do. I do have a tendency to befriend all the opposing counsel that I like, which is really bizarre, but it's kind of my superpower.
I love it.
Well,
and
you
I
used to be sales, so I mean, you do have a perspective.
Yeah, Jessica gets it. She's done it. She's done the cold calls. She's closed the deals. And she can do the voice too, as she's proven. I think one thing that's really interesting that Richard brought up is it's kind of echoing this cross education, right? Jessica, you were talking about how can we let you know what are some suggested talk tracks? Like how can legal flag some clauses that are always going to be concern for counterparty or for us? But I think Richard brings up this other side that sales can also talk about these obvious sticking points, right? SaaS subscription fees, SLA, right? Will a BAA be required? And I think this cross education between teams is a really interesting point. Dale, what would you add to Richard's suggestion that sales needs to pre-sell around some of these obvious sticking points?
Yeah, well, I think there's two sides of it. I think we can pre-sell to it, but I also think we have to, from a contracting perspective, we have to make it easy for people to buy from us. Like I see some contracts come across my desk that we built that are like 50 pages when they only need to be 5. Like, so from a sales perspective, I'm like, why do we have 8,000 pages of all this like stuff in there? Some of it is needed, some of it's not needed. So I always think like, how can we make it easy, the easiest way for people to buy while being secure? And so I think once again, that goes back to the conversation with legal to say, if we're always getting into these conversations on these terms, is there a different way to say the term? Because every time we have a contract negotiation, we're pulling these terms out, we're rewriting these terms, and it's painful for both sides. Like, is there a better way to write it? I've in a couple of the startup companies I work for, we would start with like 20-page contracts and get them down to 10 and find out like where the sticking points are, and then can we get it down to even less? And so for me, it's all about making it easy for people to buy versus just saying like these are our terms, like just stick to them. I find that because Jessica has some sales background, understands sales, that would be an easier conversation. If legal has not been through some of these conversations, they don't like the synopsis doesn't connect. Like sometimes it's like, well, but this is just the way we do business. And so I think you got to have that conversation. And then what ends up happening, unfortunately, is like the CEO gets involved because they want the deal in faster, blah, blah, blah. And then you get that tension again, right? So try to get it before.
I think that's great. I'm curious, Jess. Dale said cutting a 20-page contract down to 10, cutting a 10-page contract down to 5. From the legal perspective, is that giving you anxiety, or what's your perspective on cutting down those contracts?
No, it doesn't give me anxiety at all. That is the ideal. The ideal world for me is legal doesn't have to even touch the deal. That means the product and the selling is so good that they didn't like we don't need, that the customer says I need this product, so I'm not going to even like have to negotiate terms. Or the salesperson is so persuasive They were able to get the customer to just sign the terms. That is my ideal world. And I just put my link terms into that order form, and you just auto generate that, and you get sent up for signature, and that gets signed within 48 hours. Boom. That is, Dale, I am aligned with the quick sales cycle and no legal touch. I honestly am. But
That's
I'm
because
also
we're
a real
going to have a pina colada on the beach.
But that's not the reality. If we're going to be honest, for growth companies, right? If we're going to negotiate with the Microsofts or the IBMs or the Coca-Colas of the world, that's not the reality. They're going to have a procurement team. They're going to have their 50-page plus paper. So in that world where we need to have legal as a partner, we need to be better partners together, educate each other on what are the sticking points. Dale, is your team seeing a particular contract clause in our terms that is causing a lot of friction? Flag it. Share with us the context behind it. Why in your conversations with the buyer is it causing friction? We can guess, but it's helpful to have your perspective. Are you sharing that context and data with your legal? Maybe, maybe not. And then legal, explain why is it there? All right, well, how can we work together to massage the language to be more palatable to customers? Or maybe we can eliminate it, so let's have that dialogue. I think a lot of legal teams are very open to that dialogue, Dale.
Yeah, and I think it's just education, right? It's not like we shouldn't be afraid to open these conversations. Like I think sales in general, like they'll go to a certain point and they're like, okay, now I'm just gonna flip it over the fence instead of like, how do we set up conversations earlier? We talked about getting you in pipeline reviews. I think deal reviews are probably the right place to go versus like pipeline reviews. Like I think if I told legal, besides you that have been in sales, like I'm gonna bring you into a deal review, they're gonna be like, it's a waste of my time, right? Like that's a waste of my time. So I hear that a lot. Like only use legal when you really need to because it's costly. They have so much on their plate. So I think we need to be really specific when we bring you into a deal cycle and ensure that we're bringing you in soon enough where you can provide guidance to us, but not too soon where we're wasting time, right? Because some of these deals aren't going anywhere. Like you'll get them halfway through the deal and they'll just fall off. So we have to have that balance where, and you'll know where it is. Like this becomes a cadence, and you'll see it if you're tracking your metrics properly from a sales perspective. You'll see where things are getting stuck and why they're getting stuck. We just got to measure on data so that we can bring you into the right part of the process.
Yeah, I really like this shift. I do want to shift this conversation now to get really tactical so that we can share this advice here with our group of what you can do today to improve collaboration between sales and legal. So, Dale, we've talked a lot about the education from both sides. Dale, you just brought up bringing them into the deal cycle. I know, Jessica, for you, it's looked like the weekly pipeline review. Do you want to just kind of talk through how you're engaged in that process to kind of give folks ideas about how they could get legal involved earlier?
Yeah, Dale, I work in a fully remote company, so it's not a lot. I multitask don't tell our head of sales, but I'm camera off and multitasking a pipeline review meeting. I'm pretty sure he's not here. So I can say that. So with that said, I do pay attention to when it matters. I know how to use my time well. And when I see that these are the deals and verbally commit or the later stages, however you define it in your CRM, I'm going to focus and be like, I will take that list, share it with my legal team and say, have any of you been involved in these deals? Or look them up in Lexion to see if they're open to task for it. If not, we will proactively reach out to the account executive and sales team. Here's a report of, none of us have seen or anything. Like, has an order gone out? Have you started the sale? Like actual documentation process to close the deal? And we can partner with you to help get that done. We recommend if you really think that deal is going to close this month or this quarter, let's work together, get that done. We recommend setting up we're a very proactive legal team, Dale, because I have all the tooling because I have free tooling because I work for a tooling company. Yay. But also the reality is your legal team is generally, it's about a 1 to 100 ratio, meaning there's one internal legal headcount for every 100 employees, roughly. Sometimes that ratio is worse. So what does that mean? You cannot jam 50 deals the last week of a quarter and expect that one person to turn it around within, same day. So we need to work together to spread that pipeline.
Dale, what are your thoughts on that?
No.
I'm still a lawyer, but I can wear my weird sales hat.
Yeah. So I agree with you. Like, I think we need to figure out a better way of including you at the right stage. So the way I've done it in the past is in the sales process. So there's two things that I think we can do. The mutual action plan, joint engagement plans are one like super tactical thing, just so you not only understand what we need to do, because, for example, you send out a contract, you get the red line, then you get a call set up between the two lawyers. Like, don't go back and forth with emails. Like, after you get the first set of red lines, get a call together, because what one word means to one company means something completely different to the other lawyer, and they speak like different languages. It's like Cantonese and Mandarin. I like there's just different languages that people are speaking, and so every time that I've had that issue, I just bring the two lawyers on the phone, and they actually work it out like in 2 minutes. And I'm like, well, that was easy. It's getting that call set up and making sure when you're doing your joint engagement plan, you actually get them scheduled like straight away. The second part that I think is in your sales process, there should be a verifiable outcome or a gate stage, maybe call it stage 3, where it is send the proposal to legal if they didn't get into a deal review, or complete the deal review. And not only get signed off by legal, but by by operations, by the people that are going to install it, potentially the CSMs. Like, get a team together so everyone's on the same page to get sign off on a deal that is strategically important to the organization. So I think if you do those two things, at least you'll know on a monthly basis kind of where things are falling. We always had like a deal review just scheduled every week on like a Friday afternoon or sometime during the week, and it was a standing call. And if we had deals, we went over them. If we didn't have deals, like the call was quick.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. So a few tactical things that y'all can take away today. Schedule that standing call for deal reviews. I like the suggestion, right? After the first set of red lines, get a call together. Let's eliminate some of the email back and forth. There's a question here from Stacy about that counterparty review, which I know we mentioned earlier is one of the places where deals can get stuck most often. So Stacy asks, how do we directly or indirectly coach a customer to work within their own teams to get the deal over the line? Do you guys have any suggestions for that?
Good question. It's a huge question. I think the best way that I've seen to be able to do it is once you get your sales process set up, start asking early on in the process. Like, once you start getting towards a proposal, like what is what is your buying process? And unfortunately, in most cases that I've seen, even if you sold to the company before and you may sell 3 years later, like that buying process may have changed. So you kind of have to go through it and help them out. Like, this is what I say to other customers, like give them examples so that they feel like they can go ask the right questions, because they may feel dumb, like, how do I even go ask the question? Like, you kind of have to give them some prompting on the questions.
Yeah, so I'm very empathetic to customers. I will say the majority of our customers don't buy products as their day-to-day job, right? They need to be coached on how to buy a product. So, with that said, the coaching I give to lawyers day to day now is start with your business's why. Like, why is this important to you? It's important. Like, is this an OKR goal for you as an department? Okay, customer, you said your goal as a department was to set up, I'm going to use Lexion as an example. Lexion is a system, a scalable ticketing and contract management system by X date. Let's work backwards from there. All right, let's estimate a 2-week training period, a 4-week implementation time. That means you should sign the deal by this period. Let me work with you on how and educate you on how to buy a product. On top of that, so to set the right timing. So you can educate your internal legal team about why it's important to turn around the document by a certain time frame. In addition to the usual talk track, like, hey, the vendor said to promise me a certain discount, it's going to go away. But I hate that talk track. What I love is like, how am I an implementation partner or a long-term partner for you? All right. And then the other thing I would do is also keep in mind your buyers, again, are not educated buyers. They are a legal person by day, or they're an HR person by day, or marketer by day. Let's make it easy for them. Let's give you all the collateral you need to prove the ROI of this tool. Here is a sample deck you can use to get internal buy-in. Here is a sample business case you can edit that you can get buy-in. Give them all of the tools necessary to achieve, and then also then take all of this material and timelines and then educate your legal team about why it's imperative to get the documentation and the legal review done by a certain time frame. Basically, own their internal PM, project management process, for the customer, knowing that they don't know how to buy, that no one teaches them how to buy. Let's teach them how to buy.
Yeah, I love that.
Such a good point. Yeah, really, really good points. That's really good technical stuff. Logan made a really good point in the chat, basically saying that he expects all of his salespeople to actually open up and look at the red lines and understand kind of what those red lines are. And I love that because
Superstar.
If you're flipping over, right, like you're never gonna learn. Like I was super against like opening a contract ever. I'm like, I don't really because I don't want no indemnification clauses. Like I don't get some of the wording and language, but I think the more I opened them and more I started like understanding, you really do see a pattern on where people get stuck, and you can help the buyer before you send it over. Like for example, you may say like, and one of the things we talked about, and I think we'll talk about later on, but get all of the terms up front. Like don't start negotiating as a salesperson. Don't start negotiating. Oh, I'm going to negotiate price. Like that's the first thing everyone always negotiates. But then you're going to have like indemnification. You're going to have where things are getting any legal ramifications. Like get all of your terms, including pricing, together first before, and give legal like here's all the things that we've talked about.
Yeah, I think maybe the mantra from this webinar today is going to be that phrase, no blind passing to legal, that Logan used. That's such good advice. I love it. I want to jump to this question from Kanako, unless, Jessica, did you have anything else you wanted to add on that bit? Okay, this is interesting. We're just bringing in RevOps now, and I think we've already touched on how this process really is cross-departmental. So I want to answer this question from Kanako. What or how can RevOps or sales ops, any kind of operations subdivision, be involved in this sales or legal partnership? So while we don't necessarily have RevOps represented here today, I think Dale and Jessica have both touched on that part of the process and the work that you've done. So what recommendations would you have for how RevOps can be involved in streamlining this process?
Good, Jessica. You want to hit that one first? Or you want me to go?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I like when Dale. Okay, so when I think of RevOps and the really good RevOps team, it is really they're just operation mass, like they're little operation ninjas. And so think about analyze the deal flow from start to finish and identify the points where it's slow, where it's manual, and what are the processes or policies or tooling that you can put in place as the RevOps role to automate that or eliminate those pain points, friction points, manual points. So that could be a lot of different things. So a very concrete example would be Dale is your head of sales. He keeps saying, we keep negotiating a governing law clause to change it from Florida, where we're based, but everyone wants Delaware, where most corporations are headquartered and they're comfortable with that. Can we just make that automated in our tooling to say that the account executive has an authorized fallback to change governing law in our terms from Florida to Delaware? I'll tell you, legal will likely sign off on that. Make that part of your automated workflow. And you no longer have to escalate to a manager, then escalate to legal to get that language and put in your form. So that's one very easy example. Dale, what do you think?
Yeah, I think for RevOps, I think what is super helpful is where deals get stuck in pipeline in identifying those particular things. Like for example, if we're always getting stuck in the legal part of the process, and then helping us identify where that is. Like, is it always that we're pushing deals to the end of the quarter and that's why it's getting stuck? Well, because what will end up happening is like the one thing I hate to see in pipeline when I'm doing pipeline reviews is every close date is like June 30th, March 31st, December 31st. And it's like, that can't happen because now you're putting a lot of pressure on everybody else in the organization. I know that that's a false place to try to create like some pain or some expectations. But I think being realistic on those types of things and then identifying those, like, hey, sales leader, from a RevOps perspective, it looks like all of your deals are falling at the end of the quarter. Like, is that really true? And then kind of working through that. So from a RevOps perspective, any places deals are getting stuck and why they're getting stuck is really helpful, and surfacing them sooner rather than later.
Thank you. I think we've touched on this a couple times, and so I want to bring this question to the audience now. We've talked about tooling, we've talked about tracking, like where the bottlenecks are happening, actually having metrics. What are you guys using? What technology are you currently using to track some of those metrics to make things go faster? Please jump in the chat and share what solutions you're using. Dale and Jessica, what's your answer? What technologies are you using to integrate
Yeah.
this process?
I always kind of tie the contract to the carrier pigeon and like send it off to legal, and hopefully like it gets there in time, and they get it before like the end of the quarter, or maybe there's some other better way. The other side is using the CRM and making sure it's integrated into the CRM so that you have stage gates for it. But those are two things that I've used in the past.
Yeah, no, I think probably the second recommendation is much more useful for this group is how does your CRM integrate with whatever solution your legal team is using, whether you're using HubSpot, Salesforce, whatever. Do you have a strong operating agreement across departments that really, makes that process clear for everyone? Jessica, what would you add?
I don't know. I'm still processing that terrible carrier pigeon comment, Dale. Are you a dad? Do you watch too much Harry Potter? Tell me you're a Harry Potter fan. Otherwise, there is no excuse for that carrier pigeon comment. So, Rachel, I'm sorry. When you took the job at Lexion, you knew what you were getting into, by the way, Rachel. So, Dale, tooling, yes, you need a solid CRM, and you also need good data in the CRM. So you need to train your account executives to actually input the data so there's no garbage in, garbage out. So in terms of, yes, I'm always going to, even though I work for Lexion and use Lexion in a legal capacity, we have built all the integrations to make the lives easier for sales and go to where sales is living, whether it be in Salesforce, whether it be in HubSpot, whether it be in email or Slack or Teams, etc. So we have done all of that because knowing sales is not going to want to learn yet another tool. And to be fair to sales, as someone who has worn the sales hat, there's a lot of sales tools out there. There's the outreach, there's the CRM, there's whatever, you name it. Like to find leads, there's LinkedIn Sales Navigator. They're already overwhelmed by tech. So how do we make this easy for sales? So I'm very empathetic, Dale, to sales in that sense. So again, but we also need partners to put the data in Salesforce or whatever CRM you're using so that there's visibility and good reporting so that your RevOps team can pull the reporting to get insights into where deals are, what stage the deals are slowing, what are our conversion rates from each stage, and where are we seeing them improve or get worse, and then dig into why those conversion numbers or those sales cycle numbers are slowing down, which RevOps can play a key partner to, because legal doesn't know how to use a CRM tool. And I can barely use Microsoft Word and email. You don't want me managing your CRM tool. But give us the data.
So you want us to learn something, but you guys don't want to learn any new tools. Okay, that's it.
No.
Okay.
I think what I'm hearing is it goes both ways, right? Legal doesn't want to learn a new tool. Sales doesn't want to learn a new tool. So you've got to build in processes that work together where folks are most comfortable. That's what I heard, but maybe Jessica was digging at you there, Dale.
Legal doesn't want to learn a new tool either. I mean, honestly, we built Lexion, so it's so easy. It's even easier than their Office products. They're like, when there's friction there and adoption issues there. And then for sales, we build all the integration, Dale, right? So that sales can stay in their CRM and email. So they don't think that you're even touching another tool, but they're unknowingly giving reporting and insights and context to the legal that really furthers and makes the deal go by faster. The deals close faster.
Yeah, I think that clean data bit was so important that you touched on it. It goes back to our RevOps question too, right? Where can RevOps really support this function? clean data is going to make a huge difference. There was a question about playbooks, and then I know, Dale, you've mentioned this a couple times, the mutual action plan. So I wonder if it would be good to kind of explain, Dale, from your perspective, what those resources are and how they can best support this deals pipeline.
Yeah, I mean, it can get super complex or it can get super simple. It really depends on your process and your organization. I think one of the biggest things I see that can be a challenge, and this is more from sales leadership, is that they'll take old processes that work somewhere else and they'll be like, okay, we can just put this process in the new company or in the new whatever we're selling. And that's not really the case. Like you kind of have to understand who the buyers are, how they buy, how you're working internally, and then probably adapt a lot of what you're putting together. So the mutual action plan is just something to make sure everyone's on the same page and everyone owns a part of their responsibility. Not only us as an organization to sell the software, but the customer to actually buy the software. Because there's things in there, for example, we'll send you a red line. You tell me you're going to get back to me in 3 days, right? So now I have Jessica teed up in day 4 to take a look at the stuff that came in day 3, but then they push off 2 days. Now I have now I have Jessica like 5 days out or 6 days out, but she pushed other people in the organization's contracts because she's got a series of events. So I think understanding and making sure that the customer understands that like they're kind of in line on certain things in the buying process or in the selling process would help a lot. And then you've got to make sure you're just having clean data in CRM. I think we talked a lot about that, but super important. And then still communicating and articulating. I think expectations are things that kill everything. And so what are the expectations that are happening? Like, let's say we do get something pushed. Let's say they say, I couldn't make it. I'm going to have to push it 2 days. Like, let legal know that. Like, we're going to get pushed by 2 days. I just want to let you know in case you need to pull a different contract in. Like, be respectable to each other so that we all have the right time and alignment to getting things closed.
Yeah. Anything you'd add there, Jessica?
No, legal should be partnering with the sales organization on creating the playbooks, on helping the sales team, even with forecasting. So, estimate when you're doing your forecasting for enterprise segment deals of this dollar size, estimate that this is the contracting time. This is based on some metrics in our system. So you're not just putting, feeling the breeze and be like, I think I'll close in 3 days. No, there's actually some science behind that. No, we can help you with all that forecasting. And then also creating a prioritization system. So it's not just the Wild West and the A who slacks the lawyer first gets their deal done first. There should be a more systemized way of prioritization of closing deals. Should be by dollar value and should be most likely to actually close that given month. And we need the insights of sales to actually help with that. And sales management need to step up, even if it means hurting the feelings of some of the people on their AE team. That like you're not the special snowflake. I've seen this movie. Your deal ain't gonna close this month. Like, so I'm gonna tell legal to prioritize X, Y, and Z. Dale, I know it's really sad to like hurt some of their feelings. You gotta have this.
Thank you. I want to open up now time for questions to make sure we've got a good 10 to 15 minutes or so to answer any questions that are on your mind after this conversation. We've got a few different spots. You can drop them in the chat, Q&A. I know LinkedIn's got some questions too. Jump in. The first one I want to start with here is coming from Duncan. He says, how can sales communicate urgency of a contract to legal effectively? I always hear that sales wants everything done yesterday, which is true, LOL. But I feel like you can end up in a boy who cried wolf scenario where you actually have something that is super urgent and it's hard to communicate that. So the question is, how can sales communicate the urgency to legal?
Dale, you should start. I want to hear from sales perspective. Yeah.
I'll take this one since it's aimed at sales, and maybe maybe Duncan's a lawyer, so he's probably like concerned about it. But I think a lot of things we were talking about, like do deal reviews early in the process, like put a deal review in the middle of the process versus like waiting till the end. Then we can decide as a company what the priorities are. Like there's a priority thing that as a salesperson, you have a number, it's on your head, so everything is a priority to you, especially because you might get put on a PIP, or you have so everything becomes a priority because you're in your own individual silo and world. But the reality is, even if you have $1 million deal, maybe there's $4-5 million deals. So your priority deal that you think is a huge priority may not be the same priority for the company. And so you need that perspective, not only from sales and sales leadership, but you need to hear it from the legal team, you need to hear it from the CSM team, you need to hear it from operations. Like, there's more people involved than just sales and legal in this world. And I think if everyone's informed and you open the communication up and you do it early and often, setting expectations. I always say, you can set an expectation, but check on it weekly, check on it bi-weekly, just so you make sure you're always aligned. I think this is a process thing and a leadership thing. Good, Jessica.
Yeah, no, I actually look to sales leaders to really set expectations with both their account executives and with the legal team. So if an account executive says, I'm going to close this deal, it's a hot deal, it should be a priority, then I expect the sales manager, the sales, whatever, CRO director to escalate and communicate very clearly to the legal team, these are the deals I want you to prioritize this week or to close this month. Here's why. I need that consolidation of messaging, because for every individual account executive, Duncan, they're going to think their deal is the most important. So I need the sales leader to make a decision and actually set the priorities, even if it means making the hard call of deprioritizing the deal of another account executive. Their role is not to be just like a babysitter cheerleader for an account executive. They actually have to be a leader. And sometimes being a leader means making hard decisions and setting priorities. If everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So, and that means, and how Dale is nodding. There's a sound bite for y'all. And can you find a gift for me, Dale? So that's what it is. It's basically just your sales leader needs to own that, and then come to legal with a business case or a rationale why these deals, and educate us on why these deals are the priorities, and we will hustle to close that deal. But if your sales manager is silent about it, that's going to make it tough for you, because every A is going to be like, my deal, I'll send you a Starbucks. I have countless bottles of wine, a Starbucks gift card. No, sales leaders need to step up and own their account executive and their deals. Sorry, Dale, you step up, right? You don't just send Starbucks gift cards, right?
I think we just bring legal in much earlier in the process, and then if it falls on them, if they can't figure out the priority, it's on them. I always think about delegation. So
yeah.
Thank you. Next question's from Joan. How can legal teams learn basics about sales and have empathy for sales? And then how can sales learn basics about legal, have empathy for legal, so that we can build a bridge? So maybe we'll start with the first half of that question for Jessica. Jessica, how can legal teams learn basics about sales and then have empathy for them?
Wow. I mean, I'm in a very rare position where I literally had to do the sales. So that is probably on the extreme end of learning empathy, meaning having to actually source your own leads, get a demo scheduled, do the demo. If you can do that, Joan, that is the ultimate experience of learning empathy. Now, that's probably extreme. At a minimum, I would ghost. Meaning shadow, not ghost, whatever the word is. I don't know. I hear ghosting a lot.
We're not ghosting,
but I think
we're shadowing.
Shadow, right? Okay, I'm not hip. So shadow what the day in the life is of an account executive, and really spend the time to learn what's hard, how many no's they go through, how hard discovery is and building rapport. It's hard. It's hard to build rapport. It's hard to do good discovery. It's hard to get engagement by the buyer. It's hard to even learn how to do a product demo and then tailor it in the demo to the customer's extreme, exact pain points. Most account executives just follow a script because that's the easy way to do it. But the really good ones, they can tailor it to whatever the customer is just saying and build that rapport in the process as well, and the trust and the credibility. So learn how hard that is and how hard they work. Ask, how long does that process take? How much do you invest before you just, I think for legal, we don't have visibility to how hard that is. And when we see, once I lived it, so I know it's hard. And then we just see the email that was sitting in their inbox for 3 days, and then they forward it to us without any context and say, can you review this by tomorrow? That pisses us off. Don't do that. But when we only just see that, it's hard for us to have empathy. So I think just for legal, learn the sales process very deeply. What are the friction points? What are the hard parts about selling the product? Is it, I have a lot of empathy too, because is the market really competitive? Is the product not seen as a must have? So your account, your sales team has to work extra hard to win the customer. Learn all of that so that you can have that empathy, is so that when you're doing the deal, you can communicate that empathy to your sales team as well.
Yeah. Oh, I love how you
I
said
know it
that.
doesn't seem like it, but Jessica has some empathy. Right?
I,
She's
I do. I do. I mean, don't tell people. I'm kind of soft, but like I suffer no fools as well.
Yeah, and I think on the sales side, the best way to get empathy for the legal team is a couple of things. One is open up the red lines, like we talked about it. Like look at what the red lines look like, understand them a little bit. Like, and if you're curious, ask legal. Like what does this mean? Or when you get it back from your legal team, try to understand why they made the changes they made. And so you just have it's an education process. Like you got to learn about it so that you can be more informed about it, so that like the next contract you get over and you send it to your legal team, you can say, hey, it looks like they are struggling, like almost give them a little bit of a brief, like looks like the indemnification clause is a little bit different than what I've learned in the past, or like, hey, they want to go out of Delaware. I know we don't really have an issue with this, so don't really worry about that. Like understand kind of where their targets are so that you can make sure you're not like forcing it on them. And then the other part of empathy is just make sure that you are open in communication and make sure that it's being delivered not like 2 days, or understand like they're going on vacation. So you're not going to like plow them with a bunch of contracts right before they go somewhere. Like those are all ways to think about it.
Thank you. Next question we've got is from Lena. How do you build credibility and maintain credibility with legal? Sales inherently means that some of your contracts will fall through. And when you have a prospect that is really pushing for difficult terms or hitting certain deadlines that falls through, you end up burning some cred with legal. So, what can I do to minimize that up front? And when it inevitably happens, how can I restore that credibility? That's kind of a tricky question.
Whew, that one is a tough one, because once again, as a salesperson, you're on an island where legal is more horizontal across the organization, so they see a lot of more things happening.
Mhm.
Um, I think from a sales perspective, when you get your first set of red lines and you understand like all the terms, once again, get all the terms put together. Because the worst thing is you negotiate on price and then you go into the legal, and legal's got like 400 things that they don't like on it. And now you got to go back to the customer and like renegotiate every single one of them. So get all of them and understand from your legal team what's the give to get. Like, okay, I'll give you this term, but I want that term. Like, I want you want a discount. I want 3 years. Like, always have a give to get in the sales world. And then I think from just be open and honest, like to legal, like I think they're going to really push hard on this term, and know the right questions to ask. We in sales, you ask better questions, you get better answers. It's always the way it is. So why wouldn't we do that when it comes to legal terms or things that are happening in legal? So make sure you're asking really good questions and team up with your legal group to make sure you're asking those right questions, so that at least legal knows. It's like if you ask a question that you could have Googled, like that's annoying. So same thing in legal. Like if you could have asked legal a question and they could have give you a better response so that you could get a better answer, like try to do that versus just trying to like, push it through the system.
Thank you. Jessica, anything you'd add?
Yeah, Lena, you phrased it as earn credibility with your legal team. I would rephrase it to earn trust with your legal team. And so earning trust means giving us all the information and sharing what you can know. Like I asked, the customer, the prospect, is this, can you sign by this week? Or I asked, this is the last part of the buying process. This is the information I have. I hope what they're telling me is correct. And you can earn trust by doing your due diligence and then sharing all the context with legal. And even if you don't get it right, if you have a pattern and reputation of doing that and really being an owner of a deal, your legal team will trust you. So it means like everything that's within your control is done really well and executed well and communicated well to the legal team, you will have credibility, even if that prospect misled you or misunderstood their respective buying process. Sometimes it's just a miscommunication or misunderstanding. We get it. But if you are a pattern of just punting blindly deals to legal, not sharing context, not asking good questions to your buyer, all the things that are in your control, and you have that reputation and behavior, you will not have the trust or the credibility with your legal team.
Thank you. Well, we're almost at time, so I want to make sure to give you a chance to sum up your thinking in really one strong takeaway. So, Dale, I'll go to you first. Number one tip for getting legal on your side, what would you say?
Get them into get them into the process earlier than later. Get them in a deal review so that you guys can have conversations. Be open to the conversations. Like, don't be scared of legal, but as if you're coming into the organization, like, come in and try to set a meeting up like you would with any other organization, like ops or marketing, and become friends with legal, and that way you can establish a good relationship with them way before you do a deal. Like, if it's in the middle of a deal, like, it's way too late, and you're gonna probably burn trust and credibility. Versus, like, if you can, like, talk to them a little bit earlier, maybe get them a coffee before the deal comes through, like, butter them up and maybe some grilled cookies. Like, there could be a couple things that you could do prior to giving them the deal that may make it easier.
I love that, Dale. Gift cards, fresh baked cookies work a lot better for me than gift cards to Starbucks, by the way. So, but to pile on, Dale, I know I'm a cookie monster. So to pile on, though, really being an owner from start to finish, and finish means even when it's under the contracting stage, and not just say turnaround times are sure slow and it's not in my control. No, it's in your control. And at a minimum, I love what Logan wrote, that he does a quick skim of the documents before they send it to legal. It's not hard. I'll just tell you right now, look at a minimum 2 non-legally sections. 1, termination rights. 2, pricing and like payments. Those are not legally or scary. Look at those, and if the customer or prospect has touched those language, try to address that before you even punt it to legal. Those are all more commercial. Again, pricing, payment, termination. Pricing, payment, termination.
I love it. Thank you for making it so tactical. Well, folks, that's all we have time for today. I really do want to say a huge thank you here to Dale and Jessica for sharing their knowledge with us. If you want to connect with any of us, please reach out or find us on LinkedIn. Maybe Dale and Jessica, you could drop your LinkedIns in the chat really quickly. But if you want to learn more about this process, more about Lexion, if you want to have a one-on-one with either of these leaders, they really are the dream team and have generously opened up their calendars if any of you guys want to chat. So just reach out to them. Let us know you attended this webinar. We've really enjoyed this discussion. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Bye, all.
Thank you.
Bye.